Roll. A couple of things. Today's webinar, it was quite a bit different than what I've done in the past. So for the past webinars, we've done practice tests for math. Sometimes we've done specific subjects. I did a webinar on this probably 2 years ago, and I've made some changes to it because there's been a few changes to the T7. But with that said, I thought this would be a good one. I did get some feedback from students. Students were asking, fractions, help with fractions, or how to solve equations with fractions. But then I saw a lot of people talking about how to use the calculator. I think like 5 or 6 people responded with that. So I thought, hey, I haven't done a webinar on calculator tips and tricks in a while. This is what I want to do the webinar on. And then also, too, to kind of follow up from last night, I do see some familiar faces. Last night, I did a crash course. It was supposed to be 2 hours. It ended up being 3 hours. We worked through over 30 questions covering pretty much every topic on the T7. So today, quite a bit shorter. We'll do about an hour today. And the beginning stuff that you see here, I know you've seen it for every single free webinar. We like to reiterate that. We do a lot of free stuff, but we also have some things that are not necessarily free, but we have free demos. And that's free demos of our question bank, over 2,000 questions, and our on-demand videos. Our on-demand videos are very unique. You have timestamps where you can kind of jump to a specific part in the video. You have notes, you have cheat sheets, we have private tutoring. And if you want to start bundling a lot of these things together, look for SurePass. That's where you can get both the QBank and the videos together. Or SurePass Pro, that's where you can get the question bank, the videos, and private tutoring at a discounted price. Now, I understand, we do have some free demos of that, but we do a lot of other free stuff like these free webinars. You can rewatch some of our free webinars on YouTube, so feel free to do that during your free time. On Facebook, they do get removed after a certain amount of time. So, I mean, if you're following us on our Facebook page, yes, you can rewatch them there for a certain amount of time. Now, I mentioned tutoring. Myself, Brandon Kraft, I'm the math guy. Shelly Harshberger, she is our science tutor. Tammy Summerlin, she does English and reading. And I also mentioned too, you've probably seen these graphics, the SurePass and SurePass Pro. Look for those words over on our website if you're interested in bundling a bunch of things together, especially SurePass Pro. A lot of students are using that because they get that tutoring. You get 1 hour of tutoring with that, with the tutor of your choice, and that is personalized, just you and that tutor. Other ways to reach out to us: Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Some other big things we have coming very soon. We have actually just launched. I don't know if any of you are preparing for the HESI or have considered taking the HESI A2, but the HESI admissions assessment, that is a new release that we have. And I'm just going to type in just to show that to you. It's very similar to TEAS, except obviously it's HESI. And if I go to pre-nursing, you can now see that we have two options here. We have the T7, which we've had for a couple of years now, and HESI, this was literally launched yesterday or day before yesterday. All we have right now is just the question bank, over 1,700 HESI questions. We are working on on-demand videos, and we will be doing some future webinars pertaining to HESI at a later date. But all that stuff set aside, let's talk about what we were going to do today, and that is us focusing on calculator tips and tricks. There are going to be several tips or tricks that maybe you haven't seen or maybe you have seen, but I want to reinforce those regardless. Now, this here kind of a recap or lets you see a high level view of everything on the T7. You got 15 goals. We cover all 15 goals in our question bank. We cover all 15 goals in our on-demand videos. But when it comes time for the test, you have 57 minutes to complete 38 questions. And if you take those 57 minutes that you have for the math portion of the T7 and you divide it by 38 questions, this gives you approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds. That's not a minute and 5 seconds. This is not a minute and 10 seconds. That is 1 minute and 30 seconds per question. That's on average. Some questions will take you more time, some questions will take you less time. So I mentioned time here because the questions that we're going to be doing today, I am going to be showing you ways that you can save a little bit of time if you struggle with certain arithmetic techniques. For example, dropping the F bomb fractions. I've worked with students a lot in the past. Over the years, I've been teaching for almost 20 years, and a lot of students struggle with fractions. Remembering, when do you get a common denominator? How do you add them? How do you multiply them? How do you divide them? And there is a lot of rules. So that's where I want to start today. I want to start with this very first question here. And what I'm going to show you is calculator tips. So some of you may know how to do this problem, and I'll give you 1 minute to try it out because the technique I'm going to show you, you'll be able to do it in about 1 minute. I'll let you try it out. Feel free to submit your answer, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, wherever it may be, and let's go ahead and get started. Now, our answer to the first question, and I did see some C's coming in. So maybe you did this by using common denominators and getting those common denominators, adding those fractions together. If you know how to do that, fantastic. So the pencil and paper way involves getting common denominators and then adding the fractions. But some students have a difficult time with all the different fraction rules, especially when these fractions become mixed numbers and things like that. So what I want to show you is a technique, calculator tips. That is the name of this webinar. I'm not going to be doing the pencil and paper way. I'm going to be doing the fractions and decimals way. This is calculator shortcuts. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert all of our fractions to decimals, and we can convert any fraction to a decimal by dividing. 2 divided by 5, 0.4. And then this operation here, we are adding, but this operation can be anything. It can be add, subtract, multiply, or divide. It does not matter what operation you are doing. In this case here, we are adding. And now when we look at this fraction, 6 divided by 7, notice we get a funky decimal. And when you get a funky decimal, what I recommend doing is writing down at least 6 of those digits for this shortcut. Write down at least 6 of those digits. So 0.85714. That's 5 of them. So, okay, let me write down one more. 7142. So 857142. And you don't even really have to worry about rounding in this case. This is a shortcut. Now, you may say this is taking a lot of time, but if you have a difficult time remembering different fraction rules, then this will be a time saver. What we do now is we're going to go and we're going to do whatever this operation is. If it's add, subtract, multiply, or divide, let's type it into our calculator. Zero point 0.4 plus 0.85714. And when you add those together, this will give you a pretty doggone close approximation of your answer. And this works great with multiple choice, which is what you'll likely have if you have a question like this. So what we are looking for is which one of these fractions is the closest to this 1.257 blah, blah, blah. Now, again, back here, I mentioned use at least 6 digits. That's not a magic number, but using 6 digits at least is definitely playing it safe. So let's go down our list here. And if we do 41 divided by 35, 1 point, okay, so that already looks a little bit off. I understand we got the 1 in front, but this decimal part here is not looking like this. And the one that's going to be the closest, if I go down the list, let's do 43 divided by 35. I mean, that's looking kind of close. It's 1.2, but we're looking for like 1.257, and I'm seeing the 57, but I'm not seeing it soon enough. I'm seeing some other random digits here. By you using 6 digits, you're going to be really close. Look at 44 divided by 35. Actually, let me clear that out. So 44 divided by 35. If you look at that, this one is the closest because if you look, actually, the digits match perfect, though sometimes they may be just slightly off at the end. In this case, it wasn't. I mean, it's perfect, but we were able to do that by using at least 6 digits. Again, not a magic number there, but hopefully you do see that 44 over 35 is a really close, it's the exact answer to our decimal approach here. So this is here to prevent you, or if you have struggle, if you have a difficult time remembering the rules for fractions, that's what this calculator tip is for. So I want to give you another one to try. I want to give you some mixed numbers. Our operation is different. Make sure you understand you can have any operation here. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. I'll give you 1 minute. Give it a shot. Now, since we have mixed numbers here, this one can take a little bit longer. So, especially doing it pencil and paper. Like if you're doing this pencil and paper, you're probably about maybe halfway through it. But let's take the calculator shortcut. Now, the way we handle this number out front, let me make sure my microphone's unmuted. Yes. The way we handle this 11 out front, we write 11 point something. 11 and 3/8 is 11 point. Let's take 3 divided by 8, and that's going to give us 0.375. Now, something to note, I did not put the 0 here because that 11 is out front. So 11 and 3/8 in decimal form is 11.375. So that's a nice decimal. I mean, I know it was 3 digits, but it doesn't go on forever. But when we look at this one, if we look at 8 and 7/11ths, that's going to be 8 point something. Take your 7, divide it by 11. We do have an ugly decimal here. And again, write down at least, just to play it safe, this is not a magic number, write down at least 6 digits in that decimal. If you practice this, that right there will only take about 15 to 20 seconds to do if you get really quick with the calculator and just scribbling numbers down. So I mean, I know you might say it's taking a while, but the more you practice that, it's just going to be, hey, you're typing stuff in, you're writing stuff down. And now let's type it into the calculator. 11.375 minus 8 point, and I'm going to do that 636363. And we want to find the answer that is closest to this. And our closest answer, we can automatically eliminate. And maybe some of you thought that it had to either be A or B because some of y'all might have thought it's got to be A or B because you saw 11 minus 8 and you were thinking, well, 11 minus 8 is 3. And yes, 11 minus 8 is 3. But y'all, what's really going on in the background is there's actually some borrowing going on. And I mean, I'm not going to dive into that, but maybe you've heard of borrowing and you know sometimes when you borrow, you do reduce numbers. And technically what happens is we are going to borrow from that 11 to make it 10. But you don't have to worry about that. It's going to do all the work for us. So we're all, well, heck, look, all of these choices had a 3 in it. As a matter of fact, I probably should have, I'm guessing you're thinking the answer's got to be C. Let me come in here and let me change that 3 just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. Let's make it a 2. That was a typo on my part. So we got 2's that we got to pick from. The 2 is good. And now we want to see which decimal or which fraction. Dang, I got 65. I wrote the exact same thing there. So what do I need to put for this one? I need to put 63 over 88. That's going to make 4 different answers. How about that? We have our 2. So is it 65 over 88 that gives us this, or is it 63 over 88? Well, if I take 65 divided by 88, 7, 3, look at that. Look at that, y'all. I took 65 divided by 88, and look at how close that is. 0.738636. Yeah, we see a 7 on the end. Again, I mentioned a moment ago, it might be just a little bit off on the end. But if we were to look at 63 over 88, 63 divided by 88, that has 715. That already looks different than 738. But by us using several digits for a long decimal, we can truly see how close we're getting. 65 over 88, definitely the closer one here. So our answer will be C yet again. Now, from here, there are some other calculator shortcuts that I do want to share. But before I do that, I do want to talk about rounding. And instead of me letting you work this one out on your own, I'm just going to go ahead and address the rounding when we do this. Now, I mean, I'm going to shoot it to you straight. Out of all of the fraction rules, we want to find the product in this case. Now, I will say this, multiplying fractions out of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Out of those 4 operators, multiplication of fractions is the quickest one. It's the least amount of work. It takes more work to add and subtract fractions than it does to multiply most of the time. And so I tell you what, let me just review the tried and true method of multiplying fractions. What you do is you take top times top, 6 times 15. That's going to be 90. And then take bottom times bottom, 5 times 13. This is how you multiply fractions. So I don't want to totally throw you off of the fraction bandwagon of using decimals every time. If you remember this, then look at how quick we can truly get this answer. From here, we want to round to the nearest thousandth. So I'm going to type in 90 divided by 65, and we get 1.384615, etc. Now, out of this, if we look at our answer choices, we want to, or we don't have answer choices. If we look at the question says to round to the nearest thousandth. The thousandth is the third place to the right of the decimal. That 4 is in the thousandths place. And I tell you what, let me just copy this over just so we can see it a little bit bigger, not quite as sloppy as my handwriting. But the thousandths place is this third spot to the right of the decimal. And the way we rounding can make you or break you on certain questions on the math portion of the TEAS. That 6, we look one spot to the right. Whatever digit you want to round, this 4 either goes up or it stays the same. You always look one spot to the right. And since this number to the right is 5 or higher, we're going to make our answer 1.385. That 4 does go up to a 5 because this 6 makes it round up. This number right here, 5 or more, raise the score, 4 or less, let it rest. So this is 5 or more, so we're going to raise that score. We're going to move that up to a 5. Now, I did not use a calculator shortcut here where I took the 6 divided by 5 and the 5 divided by 13. But hey, I mean, take a screenshot, take a picture, go back and try this later. Try the decimal shortcut. Convert that to a decimal, convert that to a decimal, multiply those together. And as long as you're using enough digits, we can round to the nearest thousandth. No problem. But again, why did I not do the fraction and decimal shortcut? Because multiplying, that is the quickest technique out of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Multiplying fractions is the quickest one in most cases. Now, for our next shortcut that we're going to talk about is I'm going to show you how a little negative trick. And to show you that negative trick, certain times it will work, certain times it won't work. And I want to go ahead and show that to you. So we have some very, I don't want to say basic. I mean, these are not mental math. Some of these are not. But we have just arithmetic. We have addition, multiplication, division, and this actually becomes subtraction. We'll talk about that in a second. So what you can do if your first number is negative, you can do a negative trick. There's no dedicated negative button on the math portion of the TEAS, that calculator. There is no dedicated negative button. But if our first digit has a minus in front of it, if it's negative, here's what you can do. Clear out your home screen. Got nothing up there. And to type in negative 47, we are literally going to type in subtract 47. And if I just press equals here, notice it does give us a negative 47. This is the negative trick. Now, what are we going to, so let me show that to you again. Nothing on the screen. You just straight up type in minus 47. And I mean, yes, you can press equals just to see. We do have a negative 47. We want to add 32 to it, and we get negative 15. And you may say, okay, well, what am I getting at where I mentioned sometimes you can do this, sometimes you cannot do this? If we want to type in 2 negatives like down here, we cannot do that. Only the first number can we apply the negative trick. So can we apply the negative trick here? Absolutely, 100%. What we can do is we can type in, so negative 15, I'm going to clear out my home screen, and I'm going to do minus 15. Press equals. Let's just see. Boom, we got negative 15. We multiply it by 8. Our negative trick does work. And I find that students find this most beneficial when they're actually dealing with addition and subtraction, because that's where a lot of the mistakes occur. Whereas with multiplying and dividing, I think it is still beneficial to know your sign rules. And what do I mean by that? We cannot type in that negative right there, y'all. Cannot do it. We can do negative 88, but watch what happens. If I do negative 88, which is fine, and if I try to divide and I try the negative trick again, watch what happens. If I divide and I try to type in negative 4, look at what really happened. The calculator changed the division to a subtraction. Negative 88 divided by negative 4 is not negative 92. So I do want to emphasize the negative trick. If your first digit is negative, absolutely you can apply this negative trick. But in this case here, since we have two negatives, I think it's important to remember your sign rules. And that sign rule is a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And the more general rule there for multiplication or division, multiplication and division, if the signs are the same, regardless of whether they're two positives or two negatives, for multiplication and division, if the two signs are the same, the answer is always positive. That's the more general rule. And just like up here with this multiplication, these two signs are not the same. If the signs are different for multiplication or division, the answer is always negative. And I am emphasizing here, I'm talking about, and I mean, yes, by the way, all this stuff that I'm throwing out, these are like tidbits and snippets pulled from our on demand videos. I mean, on demand videos, I dive into all of these different sign rules because that's a common thing that students do mess up on. So I'm emphasizing here, don't forget your sign rules, especially for multiplication and division. So how would I do this? I would just tell myself, I already know this answer is going to be positive. So I don't even care about the negatives. 88 divided by 4, the answer is going to be 22. I don't care about the negatives because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And now this last one that we see here, if we take negative 23 plus a negative 98. Now, I'm going to go ahead and tell you something here. If you ever add a negative number, so technically what we're doing there is we are adding a negative. That's really what's going on right here in the background. We got negative 23 or whatever number we want. We are adding a negative. And whenever you add a negative, what that really is it's just subtraction. So instead of me saying negative 23 plus negative 98, it's the same thing as taking negative 23 subtract 98. So this is not really a negative trick per se, but what I am trying to show you what you can avoid is yes, that first digit's negative. And you might say, well, we can't type in that negative. I'm trying to show you how adding a negative really means subtraction. So yes, we can do this in the calculator. Type in that minus 23. We do have negative 23. And then we want to subtract 98. Final answer is negative 121. So there's our negative trick. And I have emphasized when it works versus when it doesn't work. Negative trick works if your first number is negative. If you have two negatives, that's when you still got to remember your rules. And if you add a negative, you can use that shortcut of just changing it to subtraction. Now, for our next set of problems, Several years ago, okay, percent trick. That's what we're going to look at next. Several years ago, I used to always stress to students, convert your percentages to decimals before you go into the calculator. And that will work on any calculator in the whole wide world. I'm going to load up a crazy looking calculator as I just sit here and run my mouth a little bit. So maybe some of y'all, depending on how old you are, maybe you've used a TI-83 or a TI-84. Now, we don't have that calculator to use on the TEAS test, but I'm gonna make a point here. Your TEAS calculator has a percent button, and it's in the top left-hand corner. The colors on my calculator here look different, but my point here is this. You have a percent button on the TEAS calculator. If I pull up this crazy TI-84, which is what you used in high school, there is no percent button on this $120 calculator. There's no percent button up here. So if you use this in the past in high school, your teacher probably did reinforce that. For percentages, they wanted you to use decimals. And you can do that on any calculator, but on the TEAS, we can do it a little bit quicker. A couple of other tricks too. 25% of 196 means 25% times 196. Now, what you can do on the TEAS calculator, I recommend typing it in like this. Type in the percent second. Type in the number first, 196, the number that's not a percent, and then multiply by the percent. 196 times 25%. And on the TEAS calculator, you do have to press equals, by the way, but 25% of 196 means 25% times 196. And maybe y'all have heard this. The word of means multiply. And I don't want to say that it always means multiply, but very often it does. And some of you have probably heard that expression. Of means multiply. So the percent trick here is, oh, and I got to show you some setbacks too, especially for your iPhone users. I got some bad news for you if you've been using an iPhone and then you go take the TEAS test. Hang tight. But this does work. But notice I'm typing in my percent second. I'm just flipping that multiplication around. And now where this sentence is useful is where you are finding tips, sales tax, discounts. You go out to eat and the dinner was $155.36. The customer left a 20% tip, and we want to find the estimated tip. So we're not going to get an exact amount. So what you really want here is you want 20% of the cost of the meal. Now, of means multiply. What I recommend doing, this will work on the TEAS calculator. Type in your number that's not the percent first, and then you can multiply by 20%, and we get somewhere around $31 and roughly 7 cents. $31.07. So the big thing here is says, what is the estimated tip? Basically, you're just going to pick the closest one. The closest value we have to $31.07 is going to be 30 bucks. That is our estimated tip, approximate. Now, for those of you that have, maybe you've been using a TI-84, because depending on how old you are, if you're fresh out of high school, this might be the calculator that you have handy. On the TI-84, there is no percent button. So what you can do, and you can do this on any calculator, y'all, you can type in either number first, and if you use the decimal representation, 20% is 0.2 or 0.20, we're going to get the exact same answer. But what I'm trying to show you here is that if you have that percent key, you can just type in the percent as you see it. You don't have to worry about converting it to a decimal. That is the percent trick, but I want to show you a caveat, a little gotcha on the TEAS calculator that will not work, but this thing that I'm about to show you does work on an iPhone. Listen to me. If you've been using the iPhone to do some percentage problems, what I've showed you here works fine on the iPhone. There's nothing broken there. And it kind of drives me crazy that it's like this. And it's going to happen with number 11. But for number 10, let's talk about, I mean, this is kind of like a side note to percent tricks. I want to talk about discount versus a sale price. If you have a question that asks for the discount, this is how much you will save. The word discount means how much are you saving, not how much you are paying. Down here in this question, we want to find the sale price. So sale price is what you pay. And I hope, I mean, maybe you know that, but some people, I've seen it enough to where people like the word discount, they think it means how much they're going to pay. And no, discount is how much you will save. So we can do this super quick. A way to find a discount is we can find 30%. You're getting 30% off. So we want 30% of 120. And you may notice that I'm multiplying a lot in this percent stuff. Don't get it twisted, y'all. You don't always multiply a percent by a number. And some people just think, I always multiply, I always multiply, I always multiply. No. What we do is if this number here represents the whole or the total, like, right, this is the original cost. We can think of that as being the whole. If you have what's called the whole or the total, just like back here, that was the total cost of the meal, of course, before sales tax and all that junk. When you have the whole and you have the percent, this is when you can multiply those together. So 120 times 30%, this $36 is how much you will save. How much you will save. So 36, this is called the discount. Now, this is the same numbers down here. So logically, what you're probably going to do here, since we have found the discount, you can take 120 bucks and you can subtract the $36 because this is that sale price, y'all. We're trying to figure out how much we're going to pay. Original cost minus that discount, 120 minus 36, that gives us 84. This works on any calculator on the planet. That right there. Subtraction is on every single calculator. But here comes the gotcha. Grab your iPhone real quick. I'm gonna grab my iPhone too. I don't even know where my calculator app is. Okay. If you grab your iPhone and you go to the calculator, actually, you know what? I wonder if I can pull up. I wonder if this one works the same way. Here's the iPhone, or here's the calculator on my MacBook. And let me just go to the basic calculator. Now, what you can do on the iPhone to find this sale price, and I don't really like that it does this, but watch this, y'all. We can take, and this doesn't work on every calculator, AKA, this does not work on the TEAS calculator, but I've seen people do this a lot, and they get stuck on the TEAS because it doesn't work this way. On the iPhone, you can type in the original price, and we can subtract 30%. And if we press equals, what the iPhone is doing in the background. I don't like that it does this because, for one, this doesn't really make sense. But I understand why they do it because very often we want to go ahead and just take that percentage off automatically. So listen to me. What the iPhone is doing, and I don't think I can make that any bigger. What the iPhone's doing, when you subtract that 30%, The iPhone is actually finding 30% of that number and it is subtracting it for you. That's what your iPhone's doing. Bad news bears. This does not work on the TEAS calculator. If you type in 120 minus 30% on the TEAS calculator, honestly, here's what it's going to give you. I'm going to show you. That's what you're going to get on the TEAS calculator, if it even lets you do it. But I know for a fact you cannot do it like this. Be careful. So, what do I recommend doing is, hey, find the discount and just subtract that discount from the original price. Now, is there another way that will work? Check this out. If you get 30% off, you will pay the remaining 70%. This is a little trick right here. Watch this. If you're getting 30% off, that leaves you, the customer, paying the remaining 70%. Watch this. Take the 120 bucks and find 70% of it. Boom. Boom. Y'all see that? So that's a cool way to do it. That's a logical way. Again, the iPhone, I'm not a fan of the fact that the iPhone does this because it's technically not correct, but I understand why they do it. Because a lot of us, when we go shopping, and if you want to find what's the price going to be, that's what we care about when we go shopping. You see $120 for a coat. This coat's 120 bucks, and it says take 30% off. It's convenient. Go to your calculator and type in 120 minus 30%. That's your sale price. But not many calculators do it like that. The TEAS doesn't. I can't say that enough. Now, I did see a question over on Instagram, and I do see a lot of comments over on YouTube, but you just submit answers. I love it. Keep the answers coming. Instagram says, so if we look at something at the store with a discount of 30%, when we multiply it, would that be how much money is going to be subtracted from the sales price? Yes, that's exactly right. So check out what the students, I don't think I can copy. Can I copy Instagram comments? Copy, boom. Yes. Okay. So here's what the student said. And that's worded exactly right. So if you look at something at the store, example, 30% off. If you multiply the 30% by whatever that original sticker price is, when you multiply it, that's going to be how much money you're going to save. That's how much will be subtracted from the original price. From the original price. And when you subtract it from the original price, that is when you get the sale price, the discounted price. But the word discount means how much you're going to save. Sale price is how much you will pay after the discount. But for those of you with an iPhone, and I think there's certain calculators, like I don't know if the Android, I got an Android somewhere, but I haven't even tried it. I did at one point and I can't remember. But I mean, what we care about as consumers is, hey, I don't really care how much I'm saving. I want to know how much I'm gonna have to pay for it. And that's where the calculator can, or the iPhone can come in handy. Just type in the original price, subtract 30%, and then the iPhone will tell you how much you're going to pay. You're most welcome. Yeah. Anytime you got a question, let them come on in. So that's some percentage stuff. And now where I want to finish up with the third calculator. Oh, just kidding. Hold up. Have I done 3 tips up to here? Fractions and decimals. Negative trick. Yes. Okay. Percent. And now finally the square root tip. So let's play around with some square roots. If you forget how to take a square root, and you will have to take the square root on the TEAS test, on the math portion somewhere. As a matter of fact, let me drag this up first. Square roots on the TEAS will be used with circles and right triangles. Now, if you do have our on-demand videos, I recommend checking out the geometry section of our on-demand videos. I do a bunch of those square roots with Pythagorean theorem and dealing with pi r squared on circles and all that stuff. But other times that square roots can appear on the TEAS test is when you're putting numbers in order. If you have our uh, if you have our on-demand videos, look at M.1.3, putting numbers in order. Now, not as common anymore. Back on T6 and early T7, I did hear students talking about quadratic equations. And I know for a fact it used to be up there on T's 5. T's 5 has been many moons ago. But honestly, I wouldn't even really worry about this one. I don't think you're going to see one. If you do, let me know. But I don't think you're going to see a quadratic equation. But just as soon as I say that, they might throw it back up there. But these two, the blue and the red, for sure. And here's how you do it. Here's how you take a square root. So let's play around with square roots for a little while. If we want to take the square root of 36, I'm going to do some obvious ones first. Now, when you take a square root, what you're trying to find is what number can you multiply times itself to give you that number inside of the square root symbol. The square root of 36 is 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. And what I want to point out too, while I have you here, is I want to point out that this is called a square root. That little funky, it almost looks like a long division thing, right? That is a square root. That right there is not a square root. That is called a square. 6 squared is 36. Completely different than saying the square root of 36 is 6. But, newsflash, y'all got a question for you. What's the opposite of adding? Subtracting, right? What's the opposite of subtracting? Adding. What's the opposite of multiplying? Dividing. What's the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. Well, guess what? What's the opposite of the square root? The opposite of square root is squaring. And the opposite of squaring is to take the square root. These are inverse operations of each other. Just like addition and subtraction and multiplication and division, square root and squaring are inverse operations of each other. So I got a little sidetracked there, but I think that was a useful piece of information. The way you can check this on the TEAS calculator, you must type in the number first. So 36, and then your square root button. Again, even though my colors are different, the square root button lies in between the decimal and the plus key. There's your square root button. It looks a little bit different on the TEAS calculator. On the TEAS calculator, it kind of almost just looks like a little check like that. But it is the square root button. Type in your number first, press the square root button, and what you'll have to do on the TEAS calculator is you have to press equals. So I recommend doing that just to avoid having that little like, how did I do it? Type in a square root that you do know. Maybe you know the square root of 25. Type it in, press the square root, and make sure the calculator's giving you 5 if you take the square root of 25. That way you just know you're typing it in correctly. Now, what about... well, I didn't even have a daggone answer up here. What is the square root of 77? Actually, I'll tell you what. What is the square root of 80? And we want to round to the nearest hundredth. Now, I know off the top of my head, I know it's going to be 8 point something. And let's just talk about that. I think this is a fun fact. Do y'all agree that the square root of 81 is equal to 9, right? Because 9 times 9 is 81. Well, the square root of 80 is going to be a little bit less than 9 because 80 is a little bit smaller than 81. So the square root of 80 is going to be a little bit less than the square root of 81. Let's type it in. Type in your 80, press the square root, and again on the TEAS calculator, you will have to press equals though. My calculator just automatically takes the square root. And if we round this to the nearest hundredth, second decimal place, the 9 is in the tenths. This first 4 is in the hundredths. The next 4 is in the thousandths. We want to use that 4 to round this one. And just like earlier today, I did say five or more, raise the score. Four or less, let it rest. We're going to let it rest here. 8.94 is the approximate square root of 80 rounded to the nearest hundredth. And y'all down here, I'm just going to separate this, but the only reason why I did this square root of 81 is I just wanted you to see that, yeah, our answer is pretty darn close to 9. It's just a little bit smaller than 9. So, again, square roots most commonly going to pop up with circles and right triangles. If you have our own demand, if you have our free demo of our question bank, check out some of the circle stuff. Or if you have the full question bank, you can jump straight to those circles and those right triangles in geometry. And then also, you may have a square root here and there when you're trying to put numbers in order. So, with all of that said, I hope you did find, I mean, maybe some of those tips you knew, maybe some of them you didn't. I hope you did find those helpful. But what I want to do now, every webinar that I do, I give away a free tutoring session. So what we're going to do that, or we're going to do that right now for my Instagram people. It's going to take you a little bit longer. I'm going to pop in I know you can't click on the link, but that's the only way I can get this to you. Unless you have a separate phone, snap that QR code. But there's that link over on Instagram. Here's the link over on YouTube and Facebook. And then here's the link over in Zoom. So y'all take a second, click on that link or visit that. I know Instagram is going to take you a minute. This is how you get into the free giveaway for tutoring. I'll give you just a few moments to do that. I'll be back in about, I don't know, what, 2 minutes should give you enough time? And then we'll announce our winner. All right. So got a little bit of feedback up here. So what we're going to do, if you did leave that feedback, I think maybe if you're on Instagram, you need a little bit more time. Just come in and let me know. Again, I know Instagram, you cannot click on the link. I wish they really would allow that, but all right. So here's how this works. Whoever wins, what you'll have to do is you'll have to email pre-nursing at archerreview.com, whoever wins. And I'm getting ready to announce that right here in a second. I'm just gathering all the names from the survey. And I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste this over and we're going to pick a winner. I didn't see anybody else on Instagram saying hang on. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. We're getting close to 5 o'clock. And I'm ready to disconnect for a little while. It's been a long week. Of course, I mean, I am going to be working tomorrow. I know we're all looking forward to an extended weekend. So here we go. We got about, I don't know, about a dozen entries. And let's see. All right, Miss Courtney. That name looks familiar. I think you're very active on the Facebook group. Courtney Nidro, is that right? Whether you are on Facebook, let me know where you are. Are you on Facebook, YouTube? Are you in the Zoom session or are you on Instagram? I'll sit right here and hang tight. For everybody else, maybe next time. We do have some other free webinars coming up. Make sure to just Google and type in like Archer Review Teas webinars. I mean, there is a website, but I know most of us probably just Google it anyway. I look forward to seeing y'all again soon. We do have something else to kind of leave you with. Last night I did a crash course. That was not a free webinar, but it was originally scheduled for 2 hours. We went for 3 hours last night, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern time. And we pretty much covered everything that you could run across on the math portion of the T's. If you are interested in that, let me know. Email prenursing at archerreview.com. We would love to have more people sign up for those crash courses. They are full of content. But anyway, I'm looking around for Courtney. Let me know where you are. Am I missing something? Let's see. All right, I do see you. So here's what you're going to do, Courtney. I see you're on Facebook. That email address, prenursing at archerreview.com. Email that email address from the email that you used when you created your Archer account, your free Archer account. If you haven't created one yet, go ahead and do it because that's how we're going to link up the free tutoring. And I'll hang out for just a second and make sure you understand that. But that's it, y'all. I hope y'all have a great weekend. Happy Memorial Day. I'm just going to hang out for a few minutes and make sure our winner is straight. Y'all take care. All right, very good. I do see your comment. So you got everything straight. Once you get that email again, what we'll do is we'll connect that to your account. It might take over the weekend. Typically I mean, especially with it being tomorrow's Friday. So maybe sometime early next week, but it might happen tomorrow regardless. The thing I do ask is that you only book it with me. That way, because I'm doing this from my side. I mean, other tutors they would have to get paid, but I'm doing this for free. I mean, I'm full time at Archer, so it's not that big of a deal to me. But I look forward to helping you and everybody again. Take care.